snowed.
Attention, people of Earth, I have an important announcement to make.
Oh, no!
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, not what you don't.
Good morning!
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant!
Yeah, it snowed. Coffee's hot. I put that vanilla chai in it still, even though soy is getting rid of the testosterone in like people from 40 under and anybody over who drinks a lot of it. They're basically trying to do so many things. The title card today is yesterday's coverage, and it looks like that balloon is about to burst. And I hate to burst people's balloons, but we'll get into that. The title of the show is Agent Provocateurs, Conspirators, and Coup d'etats. And I just put up a chat. You still don't know what you don't know. Which is the truth. You don't know what you don't know. Well, I mean, I don't know what I don't know. None of us know anything. But yeah, look at this. I went out and this since has been shoveled and swept and rock salt put down. It wasn't a lot of snow. It was about, you could see on the railing there, it's like 2 inches maybe that stuck to the rail. You know, some of that would have fell off or whatever. But yeah, about 2 inches, inch and a half, something like that. It's cold out there, though, and it's going to be supposedly. I'll give you another view of my. Doesn't need to. I think that gets the point across. Temperature outside here is 19 degrees, and supposed to be flurries for the rest of the day. Tonight it's going to go down to 10 degrees. Tomorrow we get up to a balmy 30. Maybe Sunday it's looking like rain, so it could be sloppy. That's going to be a nightmare for me in the attic. With that snow on the roof and then 41, then a melt and then rain on top of it. But then overnight it's going to freeze the 19th, and Monday it's going to chance of snow flurries again. This is the mid-Atlantic region. 25 for the high, but 9 for the low. 9 degrees. 9. Snow. White stuff. You know? You see one of my columns. If you look closely in the camera, towards the upper right, not exactly completely upper right, corner, the live camera number 2, you can see that same column and the rail. You see? See the rail, see the design of the rail, and then there's the column on the right of this photo. And if you look at that live picture, you'll see the column and you'll see the rail. I don't know, excuse me. My face looks a little washed out for some reason today. I don't know why. Who knows? I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. You know, except go to this and my filters and try to color correct it by putting a little saturation on. Give myself a little color if I want. The thing about this, the more color you put on yourself, the grainier the picture becomes grainy. So it's like you're better off to just not have, you're better off to look washed out. And, you know, of course, then you look like Mr. Spock. That's a U shift there. I didn't want that. See if we can get that to there. And then take the saturation just down. See what that does. I have the opacity down too, which makes the picture less crisp. And I have the gamma up so you can see more of the background. Let's see what that looks like. Sorry for that. That doesn't change much, but but maybe you see less of the outside. I don't know. You could see the snow on the street out there, but you'll still see the trucks pass by. Anyway, that's that.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
The plow will come up, and the areas that I shoveled, inevitably, they will be covered over by the plow. Those guys are such pricks.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
I'm getting choked kilobyte wise for some reason. And I don't know why. Could be the title of my show or something like that. Yeah. If I freeze up, just fast forward. Yeah, because it looks like I'm freezing up. They're choking me because they don't like people talking about coup d'etats and stuff. Just hang in there, folks. I'm going to continue with the show. I'm up to 2,900 kilobytes per second right now, 30 frames per second. So it's cleared up. Yeah. Craziness. They're just waiting. Today's the day I end the Twitter thing. I'm going to go out with a bang on that one. But, it's funny. I guess, did the algorithms actually pick up images? I don't know. The girl's got nice hair, nice, decent body. Sexist remarks. How about that? Yeah. Yesterday's coverage. I mean, I was doing a bunch of things yesterday. I took a walk again down to the store, pick up something. I forget what I want. Oh, I wanted to pick up some food because I'm trying to make sure if those who have been tuning in, it's like my gallbladder was acting up, and it's one of those things. This is like I talked about this show 2 shows ago, or when I was getting into health, they don't want you to eat healthy. And it's like when you can search and search and search, and even the doctors and things like the Mayo Clinic, like I've said before, and Healthline, and specific medical professionals who have websites and and they contradict each other. Like I read a thing. I'm drinking coffee now, and there was one from one not prestigious necessarily, but one totally legitimate website, not one of these stupid just things made so they could, collect cookies and sell and put up ads and stuff. A legitimate health medical site, with people with doctor before their name. Anyway, they were this individual who had written the article, this doctor, was quoting a couple of things. I'm not going to get on this long, so just to show you this absurdity of everything, okay? Like a truck barrel assing up there on a road that's completely white. Anyhow, so there's one study that said caffeinated coffee for men, a study with men who drank caffeinated coffee, that helped either clear out stones or dissolve any gallstones or stuff like that. It was a positive thing. And then there was one where women with peanuts who had eaten like one serving of peanuts a day, a different study, and that they had, gallbladder health, a healthy, But if you go to other sites, there'll be sites that say don't eat peanuts, peanut oil, and then was other sites don't drink coffee. You see what I mean? I say the internet is broken. I mean, that's a new shirt I guess I should make. Not that anybody's going to wear it, but whatever. Oh, by the way, this is an authentic Hilo, Hattie Hawaii, a real Hawaiian shirt. I bought this, well over probably 15 years ago. But yeah, it's a real authentic Hawaiian shirt. Oh, that's that Hawaiian shirt. And, of course, the legendary handkerchief, white handkerchief. Yeah, so I'm just like slowly getting into this and trying to mentally put together. I was out shoveling snow. It's 3:59 a.m. I get up at around 2:30 today. So I was out shoveling my sidewalk, stairs, and porch and stuff this morning. Had my cereal, whole grain oats. And yesterday, they didn't come until 6 p.m., which is like my bedtime. But I ordered some more whole oats and I found this thing. I was going to bring it out here, and I didn't. But I'll show it. I always show you these things the next day. If I have to take a break during this show, which I may well have to since I was shoveling snow, ate prunes, and had all this high-fiber diet, I may have to put a song on and take a break. I'll bring in the honey. But I bought some raw, unfiltered honey. And the thing is, it's like double the size, at least double the size I get at the supermarket for like raw honey. But they don't have raw, unfiltered honey. That's the best. Like I say, that's like kind of the gold standard, so to speak. And it was less than a big thing, like less quantity and not unfiltered version at the grocery store. And I bought it online. And I got next day delivery at Amazon. For once, Amazon, I mean, even though it said it was coming all day long, and I didn't get it till like 6 o'clock at night. It's like they almost forgot it. And I usually check my mail like by 3, and I'm done, and then I go upstairs. So I have a 2-story house, and upstairs is my like bedroom, media room. Like down here is the studio. We're downstairs, and we're looking out the front window at the street level. Well, we're above the street level because I have a raised porch, as you were able to see from this. See? And those are concrete stairs. And then I have my sidewalk there. And you can see the plow's already plowed over part of it. But I mean, I haven't shown, you don't see what it looks like since I've cleaned it up. But yeah, they'll plow. The plow will do one of those things where they just like aim the plow intentionally at the sidewalk. You can anyone who understands the slightest bit of or ever seen a plow truck, you have the angle in which you can aim that thing. You have flexibility. This is a neighborhood. This isn't like a highway, okay, where you want to shoot that stuff into, the median or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? So if they were conscious or, or just gave a damn, they would have it angled in such a way that it wouldn't like blow it against your house and all over your sidewalk. Or they would slow down a tad. They don't. Okay. These guys barrel ass up there just like those 18-wheelers and those coal trucks. Like I say, we're living in a world where it's a world gone mad. Everybody's like self-centered, looking out for themselves. They just don't care. And then, like I said, the title of this show, Agent Provocateurs, Conspirators, and Coup d'etats. And that's the whole thing. And let's look at another one of these freaking things I have to report. I don't know how they get in because they don't show up as having, in other words, these scam things appear in my chat, but they don't show up as a visitor, or a viewer, or or just a visitor, or just somebody coming in, because like I say, there's this in the analytics section. There's a thing. It's like a bar, and it shows, and it doesn't even show up. So somehow they slide in. Now, it isn't like Google. Like, don't they have all these like 6 and 7 figure coders working for them, right? And they can't write, a few lines, add a few lines of code to YouTube Studio that prevents, these kinds of things. They don't want to. It's the same with spam. It's like, you've got these major tech companies, from Apple, Microsoft, Google, Gmail, whatever you use, and they know what the spam is, and they know how to do it. They won't, because it's like somehow they're making a buck on it. And I'm not exactly sure how, or maybe it's the people are afraid to lose their jobs. The bureaucrats, they intentionally allow this stuff happen so they could have the job of like talking about it in a meeting, right? Or something stupid like that. There was a thing pushed back in the late 90s when spam first like kind of arrived on the scene, because there was no such thing as it in the early days of the internet. People, just used email to communicate. And the idea was that the stipulation was going to be a simple stipulation. And, if you're going to have terms of service, right, which they obviously have, we've got terms of service out the what. There should have been a stipulation that spam advertising email, that it would have to have in the subject line, a letter. And the letter could be, if they want to consider it advertising, because but what happened was one of the Direct Marketing Association, I think it was, one of those groups, they all have associations. In other words, when you hear people say K Street and lobbyists, all right, a lot of those are what would be associations, right? Automobile associations, whatever. They have these associations, and then those associations have lobbyists, representatives, and they try to make appointments with people in Congress and other key people and on local and national level. And then they, offer them perks, or kind of, and sometimes they'll strong arm them, threaten them, literally. That's what like they do with the media and stuff. Like, don't run that story, or, you're going to lose, $50 million worth of advertising or something. You know what I mean? But the same with Congress people. They'll say, hey, well, last year we gave X amount to your reelection campaign. This is 2022. It's reelection. Congress is up for grabs this year, right? If you want us to pull our funding. And so way I understand it is, it was those types of associations that put pressure, because there was a movement among like guys like me, the founders, like the early adopters of the internet, and the power users, whatever you want to call us, the people that were innovating and were like just on a daily basis making this thing happen, right? And so the pressure was there, but they pushed back. And all we were asking was a simple thing. We were saying, if it's advertising material, we weren't even calling it spam, but it's spam, right? But that it would have to have a code like an A. All right? And if it was fundraising, it would have to have, say, an F. Right? And if it was, there are various things that you get, right? And that way, when the software program, the mail program itself, or at the server side, wherever the gatekeepers, are, that, but on your computer as well, you could do it that way too. But if you can you could opt out of advertising. You could opt out of fundraising. You see, at like I say, the gatekeeper side, the server side, the not even ISP. It could be the ISP, but not the ISP side, but the original, whoever it is. If it's Gmail at Google or at Apple. But if not there, you'd be able to opt out in your own email program, so that anything that had an A in the subject line, right? Like if A was the beginning, A dash, right? Or it could be, might have to have a symbol there so there would be no confusion. Whatever the case may be, come up with whatever, right? You see what I mean? It could, that I could say, there would be a, opt out thing to click out in my settings. So I wouldn't get any spam. So, I don't want any advertising emails, period. No fundraising emails. Sorry. No. And they put pushback against that, right? It's the same as with this big thing with cookies now. It's on every site because there's a lot of blocking, stuff built into browsers. As much as Apple's become, really, the devil, but they have a lot of blocking software built into like their Safari browser. But they've received all this pushback, and the people, so the websites themselves have all these things where you can't use the website if you have this blocking software, or these cookie things are popping up on everybody's websites. It's like I said, they ruin the internet. It's like search has been ruined by Google, right? Because it's like, you can't find what you're looking for unless it's something so simplistic that it's, it's a dull moment. You could probably just have that on your computer, the answer, right? Wikipedia is totally like full of lies, right? They change things to go with, to cover whatever the current narrative is, to cover their asses, right? So it's all pretty crazy. I mean, what's going on? And, and this is all a prelude to, today's show, trying to deal with some of this,
This is insane.
There's this move forward. It's like yesterday, and it's, like I say, no matter where you went, there was like the talk, of this January 6th thing. And I got into it a little bit yesterday morning before, because I predicted it, and I knew it was going to happen. Everybody knew it was going to happen. Had their eyes open. But the idea is that, what's come out factually, right? In other words, what's come out from government sources and the media themselves, it's interesting, the media there'll be a discussion, and they'll bring on a so-called expert that's just somebody who's retired and is bored in their house. So now they come on and they get a job as a commentator on one of these networks, right? And they're a so-called expert, or somebody who couldn't get tenure at college. So now they're on the, making the rounds on, on the various talk shows or news shows. But they themselves, if you ever really listen, and that's a problem, people don't listen. They hear what they want to hear, or they just look at the headline or the sound bite, the intro, and then the rest of the stuff just goes in one ear and out the other. And like I was saying, it's the same with the eye. Something gets lost between the eyes and, the part of the brain in the back of your head that actually makes sense of the visual cortex or whatever. So somewhere in between there, they just don't see what the photons, coming in, representing. And so, they clearly, it's clear now, right? They'll mention it, but they'll say, but, right? So there obviously were agent provocateurs involved in this thing. There were obviously, like, doesn't it strike you funny that you would have plain clothes, special forces and stuff activated on a particular day that were in there trying to, it's like when the FBI does these things where they entrap people, right? And so they do these sting operations and stuff. So apparently they had enough, this was so far planned in advance by the government now, okay? Not the people that they're trying to like push this, that they were so far planned this that they actually were creating a sting operation. And they had these and they've admitted this. Okay, this is now, it has been admitted. All right, I'm not making this up. You can find this, and I think it's been reported in the, the Post of the Times or both or whatever, and some of the news, what they call mainstream news. And like I've mentioned before, I might have mentioned it yesterday. I mentioned it on a website on Locals, and that is, if they had all the, if they, in advance of this so-called event, right, which was hardly some kind of answer. I mean, what they're trying to make out, Pearl Harbor was like a massive destruction, by an enemy. This was like a bunch of like, just people on the stairs. Okay. And it was the agent provocateurs, right? These people that were pushing and egging and forcing and making this thing happen. And if they didn't want this, if they had that advance notice to orchestrate this thing, which they've admitted that they were in the crowds and they were doing this stuff, well, why didn't they just close off the Capitol that day? Right? Like I said, why didn't they just have a bunch of National Guard trucks out front and say that's that, Or the Capitol Police? Why weren't they just like, standing there like they did at Kent State or something, You see what I mean? So it's not really up for question when you look at the logic. But see, people don't look at it logically. In other words, if you're going to plan to so-called infiltrate a crowd, the difference between infiltration, and sometimes I always say this even about these sting operations and stuff, is the question is, were they really like egg these people into doing something, right? The question is, would the person have even done the thing if the sting or if the the agent provocateurs weren't like pushing them and giving them money and making them do it. In other words, it's almost the way I view it, and this is a generalization, of course. Okay, it's a generalization, of course. Everything has its purpose and everything, and certain operations obviously work. Okay, when you're dealing with serious matters. Okay. But I hate to burst the balloon of people that like have been glued to the mainstream media. This was not one of those serious matters. Okay? I mean, it was ridiculous. This is a plain example of where the agent provocateurs, the infiltrators, right? The government infiltrators, the people, plain clothes, whatever, sting type of people that were doing this, they should be the ones held liable. All right. They should get an dishonorable discharge from the military. for their participation in this. Right? It's like, it's like the Nuremberg trials. I was only following orders. Yeah, but you're the one that did it. Okay? You had the right to say, I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous. You're saying you want us to like create this kind of event for you so you can get some political mileage from it? They're so planned. Like I said this like, oh man, over a year ago. I was trying, well over a year ago. What am I saying? A year and a half or 2 years ago. I was trying to explain to, I was saying that the people, these coup d'etat types, all right, the people that are running things now, all right, that they had playbooks. And they have playbooks, and they plan things out way in advance. It was like the Patriot Act. It was already basically written in advance. They had the whole blueprint and the book to go into Iraq. It was already done like in the 90s by like the neocons and the neoliberals, because like that's another thing people don't realize. It's like they're two sides of the same counterfeit coin. All right. So in other words, in many cases, these people are at least 10 years ahead. These think tanks, they call them think tanks, right? Remember I used to live out in LA. I used to always pass like there's one area by Santa Monica where you have to make this like round turn. And it's like you'd always pass the Rand Corporation or one of these things. And it's like, they have all these think tanks, right? And I'm not bringing that one out for any reason other than it just, these places, they really exist, people really work for them, all right? And they are the consultants to, to the people, the movers and shakers, the people that make things happen. And these think tanks, there goes a plow truck. The question is there's another one. The question is, are they pushing stuff onto my sidewalk? So, yeah. And these oblivious people, like the Save America type of people, the MAGA people, they're just sitting there thinking, oh, look at the crowd showing up for our rallies. And they were peaceful. Those rallies were always peaceful and stuff like that. But they were thinking, see, we're popular. We have a movement, blah, 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 we'll take back America type of thing. But what they didn't understand and still don't understand to this very day is that their opponents, the people that basically don't want them to exist, don't even want them to live, really. You know what I mean? It's like, they don't, it's like I say, they don't want us to be healthy, wealthy or wise, right? They're doing everything they can in all those areas. They have plans. They have think tanks. They've been like, they work on these things. They have people who show up for work every day at 8 or 9 in the morning and work the full day. They have junkets, they go to conventions. They compare notes, and at conventions there's backroom meetings with officials, party officials, and other special interests and donors. People just don't understand this. They think, oh, that's like in the movies. I'm so tired of saying this stuff. Where do you think the subject matter for books and movies comes from? Where do you think the subject matter for these, political thrillers and stuff like that comes from? It's watered down reality, right? It's not fantasy. If anything, it's watered down reality. In other words, it's kind of the way it is, but they're even leaving out the real juicy stuff. Because if you saw what really goes on, you would be like, your mind would be blown. you I know I lived and worked in D.C. I was behind the scenes a couple of times, at some parties, where there were people, members of Congress and stuff. Because I worked for Roy Cohn. And I heard them, because I was basically was just like an intern, fresh out of college. I was just basically, doing the nonsensical, slave type of work that an intern type of person does. But obviously your eyes are open and your ears are open while you're doing the things, right? Taking care of the event, whatever, party. So you hear what they're talking about. You see what they're doing, And it's like, so yeah, I know. And I used to hang out at like places like the Hawk and Dove, and other places. And I used to, and I would take Roy Cohn around to these meetings. And, it was an interesting thing because part of my job was I wasn't a chauffeur. But since he had such a low budget, he ended up, if you know the story about Roy Cohn, and this was like towards the last days, but he still has his law license then. It was before they took it away from him. But I would take him to certain events, and so I would drive the car and drop him off, and I'd have to wait there. But he didn't have a chauffeur, he didn't have a staff or anything. I was basically it, And so I'd drive to the event and I'd have to wait. And so you drive and you just pull your car, and you just stand around smoking cigarettes with all the chauffeurs. Right? Some of them have their little flasks. They all know each other because they all go to the same events. I was only in that game for a year or so. So it wasn't like I was like, and so, they're a little hesitant, for the new guy, but in some respects they're a little bit, open to like, kind of like break in the new guy. Right. So the chauffeurs talk among themselves. The chauffeurs know everything, and that's when my eyes were opened about DC. Was like when I was stuck waiting like 3 hours at some social event that Roy Cohn was at, and I'm outside hanging out with a couple of dozen chauffeurs for senators, congressmen, other VIPs, big donor types, the movers and shakers of America, and so all the chauffeurs are hanging out there, and it's like smoking cigarettes, the classic thing, cracking jokes and weird stuff like that, and telling stories. Hey, did you hear about what's and such? Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, I had to take such and such over to there. Yeah. Hey, the other day, you know who I drove to the White House? Yeah. So I'm telling you, man, I didn't plan on any of that stuff. I originally went down to DC because my college girlfriend was like down there. And believe it or not, I was trying to get her back, and I was getting a job down there, and I was like, well, maybe we'll get back together. We got together a couple of times, but she ended up marrying, like, I don't even want to say, and she got divorced later, but I mean, on a DC, a high up DC official. It was weird, but I'm not going to, like I say, I respect people's privacy, so I'm not going to say who it was either, because in her own right, she's actually wrote a book or something. But I've been around, man. I don't tell these stories, and I don't even put some of that stuff in my book because, like I say, I respect people's privacy. I'm not a tell-all type of person. I tell all about myself. Like, my life's pretty much an open book. I don't really give a shit. But that's how I learned, and that's why I say these things and tell you that you don't know what you don't know. It's like what goes on behind the scenes, what's really happening is happening, man. You know? And it's way past, it's way beyond, some of these people like the Davos set and the World Economic Forum, those people go beyond Bond villains. Okay? Cartoonish character type, right? Like, so far out, weird, over the top type of villains you see in those movies, particularly even the early ones with like Sean Connery and stuff. Those guys were over the top, like Goldfinger or, some of those people. In real life, these characters exist, man, and they're worse than that. You have no idea. The average person in America has never really seen a yacht, like a real yacht, like a yacht that looks like a cruise ship. Okay? They don't understand the life that these people live. There are some people that live on these yachts, like, they're on there for like a couple of months. They're huge. They've got private jets. Like some of these, these big Middle Eastern, and I don't mean like the countries where we've had all the bombings and stuff, but the ones who fund all that stuff. All those other former oil-rich countries, that are now diversifying. Well, in America, people have private jets, right? The billionaires have these private jets, right? That's no secret. Well, they have like their private jets are the size of like 747s. You don't know that. People don't know that. It's not like you see on a TV show, they're in this thing and it's just like comfortable jet, type of thing. Yeah, some billionaires in America have that kind of stuff, but these Bond villains, these Davos set, the World Economic Forum, their private jets are the sizes of 747s. They've got a piano bar up in the second floor, second tier, and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. They're the same as they're like Air Force One, put it that way. Those guys have like their own versions of Air Force One, right? Just less techy. So, and when you see all this stuff, and this is why the average American is just like watches Google-eyed at, these network TVs and they create these events like yesterday, and people just fall hook, line, and sinker for it, and they have no idea that these things are orchestrated, pre-planned. It's a pre-planned outcome. And, it's part of like, it's a contingency. If this doesn't happen, or if this happens, then we need this contingency, and they've got contingencies for contingencies. And someone says, let's pull out that contingency plan D, right? And that's how it works. And that's why I don't really care about politics anymore, because I could see through it, and I've seen through it. And to me, the whole thing is a joke. But I see these people that like talk about it, and someone might say, well, you're talking about it. No, this is social criticism. I'm criticizing the overall concept of it. No, I'm not talking about the individual stories, right? The so-called news that everyone seems obsessed with on a daily basis, right? It's meaningless. These people are determined to bring on this kind of thing.
Your papers, please.
And they've got contingency after contingency to do it. And all I can say is, without getting into detail, because you can't get in detail, But I no longer really care anymore, and I'm basically, I'm on the verge of basically just stop, not even doing this stuff anymore, because it's getting ridiculous. They're creating situations. First of all, your life doesn't matter. They don't care about your life, your health, or any of that stuff. So they're moved into a level now that is beyond. I don't even know how to say it. You can't say beyond belief. It's beyond your wildest imagination. It's beyond the ultimate thriller, right? It's so far out there that you would have to go to a week-long conference and have daily presentations on various topics, with people with whiteboards, or and PowerPoint presentations for you to grasp. It would take you a week to go through all the details so that you could finally grasp what's going on. It's almost like a deprogramming type of thing, right? That's how far, advanced, this whole situation is, what's going on right now. And that's why when I say the Save America and people thinking this, that, the other, doesn't stand the slightest bit of a chance in succeeding. You could entirely change over every person in Congress, all right, and the White House, and that would have zero effect on the plan that is currently in motion right now. When people go like, it's impossible. That's impossible. No. When I said, I don't know, a month ago or so, or whatever it was, I said the Great Reset already happened. Right? I wasn't joking. I wasn't pulling that out of the air, thin air. No, it's already happened. Everything's already in motion and has been in motion. And anything that comes in, if someone tries throwing a wrench, into the works, they've got contingency after contingency. They're prepared for that. They're prepared for whatever could come up. I said a couple of years ago, and I think I even directed it at Trump when he was still on Twitter. So it's definitely was a couple of years ago. I said, what you need to do is you need to pull a Captain Kirk, like in the Wrath of Khan, right? Never let a good Star Trek reference go to waste, right? It's an ongoing thing on the show. Hey, Scotty, I just got another reference to Star Trek. But in all seriousness, I did. I said, you need to pull a Captain Kirk maneuver similar to what he did in the Wrath of Khan. And remember, he had to pull like 2 or 3 because Khan had things figured out too. And I don't see that going on. You see? I don't see Steve Bannon doesn't grasp that. These people don't get it. The people who are pushing the Save America campaign, they don't understand that. Because they can't believe, they don't necessarily believe that these Bond villains exist. They think that's fantasy. They think that's like the movies. Right? It's like when they talked about draining the swamp. Like they had no idea. I mean, at least for you give him credit. Trump at least you could give him credit because he admitted he had no idea how deep it was. But that was a passing line that I think he probably only said once, and I wonder how many of his followers. I think that might have went in one ear and out the other. How many people pushing to save America and stuff like that, and even maybe Trump himself because he's still out there doing it. Do you remember he even said, does he remember saying that himself even? It's like, no, you can't. The country is a corporatocracy. The unelected bureaucracy has millions. There are millions of people working for the bureaucracy. Millions. Not hundreds of thousands, okay? Millions. Right? The corporatocracy has millions of employees, right? The big tech, big pharma, big ag, military contractors, big media, Wall Street, right? Okay, that's the corporatocracy. So you've got millions and millions of people working for the corporatocracy, and you've got millions and millions of people working for this unelected bureaucracy. All right? And the two of them, these two groups, so now you're in the multi-millions of people are on the same page, more or less, and they're running the world. Because overseeing that I was starting to talk about the U.S., but the same's going on in the U.K. and other Western, so-called Western nations. Western civilization's fallen, just like the U.S. It's a former U.S. But the Davos set, this World Economic Forum, is an organized crime syndicate. You see? You don't see, but it is. And so, I don't mean to bring you down, and I'm not saying this to be some fearmonger. I'm just saying it's like, wake up to reality, because my thing on this is always like, all right, how do you burst that balloon? All right? How do you burst that balloon? You don't. Okay? You don't burst the balloon. You leave the room. Okay? You leave the room. How do you deal with, like, I got the New York hat on again. How do you deal with these the Stasi state of New York, right? These these dictators running their fiefdoms, right? You leave. You leave. Because what you don't understand, even on the local and government, and state level, county, state level and stuff, you still have bureaucracies. And the bureaucracies, that's a long, ongoing thing. They started at the local level originally. Remember, it was the Speaker of the House, Democrat Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill under Reagan, who said it, all politics is local. That's back in the 80s, right? And people, like, they just don't get it. This infection, all right, this, I don't know what you would call it. It had this octopus, I guess, Octopussy. Speaking of Bond, this Octopussy has its tentacles everywhere. Everywhere. and you're not going to do anything about it. So, do you roll up in a ball, give up? No. You basically focus on your life, yourself, your own family, your friends, your community within the community that is corrupted. Okay? You have to basically, remember life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you have to focus on that and find a way to take care of your life, be as free as possible, and be happy. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that means health, life, living well, wellness. Liberty, be as free as possible out of these tentacles, right? The claws. And be happy. And you're not going to be happy if you're stressed out and you're glued to the TV and you're thinking, oh, we got to defeat. It's like it's like Obama, was how Obama let down people on the left, years ago. All these people Obama and Trump are pretty much are so similar that it's uncanny. And someone says, you got to be kidding me. What do you mean? I mean, in their methodology, of messaging, okay? Not in their ideologies, okay? Political leanings. But in their methodology of messaging, they are, they're completely identical. Both drew unbelievable crowds. All right. Both were very charismatic to the crowds they drew, the people who followed them. And both offered specific uplifting messages, things like Obama, change, right? He was going to change America, right? All right. And Trump was going to drain the swamp, right? And bring back, right, America or whatever, right? Well, Obama he was in office for 8 years. People forget that. 8 years. And during 8 years, he didn't change America. He didn't help the black person, right? In fact, Black Lives Matter was formed under the Obama administration. People don't even know that. And they were having riots and, Baltimore was set on fire and all that stuff. All that stuff was going on. But see, people don't have a memory past last week's story. You see? So he didn't affect change. And then he stirred the pot out in the Middle East, and we were and endless wars continued and got worse, and more soldiers died and were dismembered and all that tragic stuff. Right? And meanwhile, the military-industrial complex got richer, and Big Pharma got a big stranglehold on. Big Tech became more powerful, right? All that stuff. And his whole campaign and his big crowds that he drew, he said he was going to change and make America like this unified, peaceful, loving place. And he tore the country completely apart. Now, there's people out there that would disagree with that, but that's just because they're living a life of illusion. Well, fast forward. Remember, he was there for 8 years now, and his vice president was the stooge that's in there now. Okay, so fast forward to Trump. I'm going to drain the swamp, make America great again, blah, blah, blah. Well, it didn't work. Now, you say, well, yeah, but he was, they impeached him twice. His own party didn't help him out, and all of this stuff. Yeah. Well, the thing is, there's probably Democrats would say the same thing about what happened to Obama. In other words, maybe Obama didn't want to send all those drones over. All right. But he was pressured by the military industrial complex to do so. Maybe maybe he did want to help clean up the inner cities for all we know and make it a more peaceful, country and bring people together, unite people together. And maybe the powers that be basically said, hey, you can't do that, man. We have to have divisiveness. Right? What about Ted Kennedy? People forget, people talk about Obamacare and stuff like that. What about Ted Kennedy's who died at that time, but like they literally brought him out on his deathbed to vote on it. But Ted Kennedy wanted like universal health care. I think that was his thing, right? And, Obama didn't fight for that. He let it go, and he went on the side, and basically even to the point of like having Ted Kennedy have to accept. Now, I'm not saying that I was necessarily for or against that. That's a very complex issue, the healthcare issue. All right. Because, in other words, I'm not necessarily against it in the U.S. This is a little bit of a tangent. We generally have a better healthcare system, because people who come from countries that have national healthcare, they come here. But the thing is, they have smaller populations. The U.S. has a bigger population. So the only way, universal health care would work in the U.S. is if big pharma, right, and, the medical associations, right, like the cancer association, these people, big cancer, right, if those industries were reeled in and weren't permitted to, basically abuse the system, overcharge. That's why that's something that, see, a lot of people, they just talk, ideology, policy, socialism and versus capitalism and stuff like that, but they don't get into the details. But be that as it may, Obama didn't push for what he said he was going to do. He just like, okay. And so in effect, it ended up being, to this day, there are still people suffering from Obamacare, so-called, right? But, like I say, so what happened was it was the same thing. People just don't understand. It's like the same thing occurred. The forces out there, the bureaucracies, the corporatocracy, are so strong that it doesn't matter Democrat, Republican, it just doesn't matter. It's not about issues and ideology, all right? These groups, all right, that are led and meet at Davos every year, which is publicized on Bloomberg and CNBC. It's no secret. It's no conspiracy theory. All right? They broadcast this stuff. The video, their presentations that occur at that event, some of those videos, you can find them on YouTube. They're not afraid. They are so powerful, they're not afraid to tell you what their goals are. Right? But people don't watch those videos. People don't pay attention to Bloomberg. The type of people who watching Bloomberg are worrying about their stocks. And so they're just looking at the ticker in the bottom, and they're, day trading, like they got screens like I have here, and they're trying to, that's their version of a gig economy, just trading stocks and cryptos and metals and things like that. Yeah, it's all a big game. They're not listening to the story. They're not listening to the politics, to the, to what the plan is. I mean, I've watched some of these presentations, and they're so far out that you have to wonder. You look twice. You go to you see where the video originated from, and you go check it out, and you go to the website. You have to look and say, is this some fake thing, or this is too far out to believe? And then you verify it, right? And then you go back and continue to watch it after you verified that this person really exists. This is a real lawyer. This is a real member of such and such a firm who did attend Davos, and that this presentation actually existed, and it's on the agenda, and it took place, and this is the video from it, and you watch it, and they're saying things like, I mean, I'll give you an example of how something I'm saying. This is the tip of the iceberg. I saw a presentation by a lawyer. I may have spoken about this in the past. I may not have. Forget. I saw a lawyer making a presentation at Davos to, the audience, the super elite, right? The upper echelon, the billionaire class, right? The World Economic Forum, right? Saying we don't really have to worry about if we acquire information by reading people's minds, because that is not really a violation of any sort of existing law, since there's no law on the books anywhere that has anything to do with intellectual property that is that comes from reading from mind reading, or gathering information from somebody's thoughts. And I'm like paraphrasing on top of paraphrasing, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. In other words, this woman was giving a presentation to these people, basically saying, in a nutshell, we have the technology to read people's minds, and more or less. And there's no law against that, and there's nothing they can do, anyone can do, any particular government court can do, because it is not there's nothing that comes close to basically being able to say that infringes upon somebody's privacy or something like that, because it's just so far out, it's not even alluded to in any legal document, and there's certainly no precedence or anything like that. Now imagine that, the concept of that. And what was she talking about? Are they reading people's minds already? I know, it sounds like sci-fi. Now you're saying this guy really is a tinfoil hat guy. So, okay, turn it off. Enough of this clown. An EKG. Brain waves. Everyone's brain waves are unique, right? I wrote a book. Let's take the balloon girl off here for a second. You get the idea there, though, right? I think that's like genius. I made that yesterday. I wrote this book, Codex, like a year ago. Well, 2020. This is my 2021 book here. Then what? But this one starts out dealing with the hard problem of consciousness and AI. And so there's a lot of stuff in there that has to do with the mind, brain, The hard problem of consciousness, in case you're not familiar with it, is basically the idea that you've got a bioelectric brain, but the leading neuro scientists, they don't understand where consciousness rises from. They may argue and say, well, the brain creates consciousness, but they can't give you any concrete, they can't say how consciousness arises, how it's created. All right. So they call it the hard problem of consciousness, and all sorts of serious PhDs, academics, people with tenure, and in this case, prestigious journals, these kinds of articles have been written and are being written now. It's a hot topic, actually. All right. So the idea is that one thought on the matter that I have is that, and a lot of other people see it this way, is that the brain is kind of like a radio receiver, television receiver. All right. And so your consciousness is basically something that's outside of the bioelectric brain, this physical android type body. Okay. And it's in something that, like Tesla, the real Tesla, not the car, would call the ether. All right. And that people who would be involved in anything from any kind of metaphysics to spiritualism to religion, the soul, if you will, or whatever, anything outside, anyone who believes in anything outside of just the pure corporeal, right, bioelectric, like I say, android body, bioelectric brain, anyone who believes that there's anything beyond that, right, the non, it's not even about atheism, or anything like that. Anybody who believes there's anything outside of that understands then that, so the question posed is that if and I'm not the only person to have said this. I'm not necessarily the first person to have said it, but I've been saying it for a long time. So I don't know. Who knows who said it first? But you imagine a television set, okay? You have a picture and sound, and you have things that go on. And so imagine even a smart TV that's got like a memory card in it and stuff, because you could download movies, right? You could do that, download movies and apps and stuff on a smart TV or a set-top box or something like that. But the smart TV, some of the smart TVs now, the set-top box is in the smart TV. So let's look at our brain as a smart TV. All right, the fact of the matter is when you're watching a broadcast, all right, it's coming from somewhere. All right. So the signal comes in to the TV and then you're watching it. All right. When you're listening to music or something, it's coming in through the ears. Right. And even if you download something, which would be the equivalent of a memory, okay, it came in from somewhere, and inevitably that memory will get filled or replaced, or it might get stored, whatever. But it's not inherent. It wasn't there. Okay. And so someone says, yeah, that's all well and good, but how do you explain to somebody who has brain damage? And I say, well, if I take a hammer to your TV, all right, the picture, may be screwed up, or the sound may be messed up. All right. But the signal's still trying to come in. It's just that it's distorted, or it's handicapped. And then, people say, what about these people that seem to know things? Now, somebody's in an accident and then they suddenly can play the piano or something. Yeah. Well, it wasn't in there to begin with. So where did it come from? Good question. From the ether, right? Oh, these people that remember past lives or something. I don't think there's so much remembering past lives. I wasn't going to get into this weirdness, but I'm going to end this. I'm not get this topic. I'll get back on topic, other topic soon, shortly. This is just,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
The point is, yeah, it's coming from the ether. It's from outside. It's, it's an existential, whatever, metaphysical thing. And and it's known that brain waves are, there are things called brain waves. So there's a physical makeup that could be like a television, there's bioelectric, synapses, neurons and all this kind of stuff. There's tubules and there's all kinds of explanations, for various things. People who study the brain and dissect it and, all that stuff. Even Elon Musk and inserting things and stimulating parts of the brain to do certain things. You're stimulating the android body. Raise the arm. It's like the Frankenstein monster, Hey, right? I mean, that's all that is, right? So why wouldn't or why couldn't a sophisticated supercomputer, right? Supercomputer is kind of a strange word, but you know what I'm saying. That something powerful enough, and we're improving our chips, ridiculously right now. I was reading some stuff, that everybody was talking about Apple's A1 or whatever chip being like over the top, but it looks like Intel or IBM. I mean, they're coming back with something that's even crazier. I was watching a video by some MIT people or somebody like that were explaining this other new chip, and this other technology that's, and they basically, the idea was, it's actually this woman, this brilliant woman. Can't think of her name. She has a real super high voice, like really high, like the highest voice you ever heard. If you know who I'm talking about, I just can't think of her name offhand, but she's a genius. And I've seen some of her videos where she delves into, that kind of stuff. And she was saying that this brings back, because, a lot of us have been saying Moore's law is like dead, right? Because we've kind of like, shrunk things to a point that, it's like that whole thing just, it's not going to be like every 18 months isn't going to be some, But with this new technology, this like puts a whole new chapter of Moore's law in, she was explaining. So you have to understand that as technology and the speed of processing, all right, improves, and it has been improved. And like I say, I'm just using the word supercomputer just for the sake, for the general public, all right? That the process, the idea of interpreting brain waves, all right, is within the realm of possibility. Put it that way. In other words, finding out what's going on in the bioelectric brain is within the realm of possibility of computational, devices. And imagine these people at Davos actually having a presentation where they were talking about the legality of them using that information that they could glean from directly from people's brains, thoughts. Okay, that's how far out. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's just one example. And you may say, well, that's like ridiculous. Okay, it's ridiculous. But they have other things that are like war games, like what if we do this and do this? Ridiculous scenarios that they talk about. Is it possible to have a limited nuclear war? Can we do this, right? What did they just say when they were talking about Russia? Everything's on the table, including limited nuclear weapons. And you're going like, you got to be kidding me. Where's the doomsday clock? You know what I'm talking about? It's like we should be basically like one, nanosecond to midnight after that statement. Nobody even brought up that. Did people even remember that there's a thing, a doomsday clock? It's like when Trump got elected, they said the clock went up, and it's like that during the Trump administration, there was like peace, pretty much peace, right? I mean, we forget, these clowns in office right now, they just pulled out of Afghanistan willy-nilly, like whatever, and left a mess there and gave terrorists the weapons and stuff, because the military-industrial complex wants them to have the weapons so that there'd be a need to go back and, sell more weapons to our government so that there could be another war. But it was under Trump and the last administration that the decision to pull out of Afghanistan was made, and it was made. People were criticizing him for not doing it fast enough, and he was trying to explain that, we have to come out, we have to take this gradually and do this in such a way that it's not going to leave a power vacuum or, Anyway, so people don't remember anything that happened a year ago. They don't remember Obama's rallies. I watched them because back then I was watching TV where big crowds, and he was talking about change and, basically build back better and save America type of stuff. And then those 8 years, because politics, it wasn't pop culture back then, right? The only time you ever heard about Obama is like, there would be an individual thing. Trump, it was Trump all day, 24/7. That's all it was. Trump News Networks, right? That's all it was. And now it's it's the same thing. It's politics, and they're somehow bringing Trump back into it. Who gives a fuck? It's like, aren't you tired? I'm just tired of it. And and the guy's got an ego, so I wish he would just go away. The only way to fight, if you want to save America, so to speak, okay, the only way to, have any little victories is going to be on the local level, right? And like I said before, and not like as if I said it once, like I said 1,000 times, literally. Get yourself in order. Freedom is a state of mind, number one. So get out. If you're being oppressed, get away from that oppression. I don't care if it's an individual oppressing you or a state oppressing you or a landlord oppressing you. You've got to get an escape. And there are places out there. And I know people are afraid. And I understand, the concept of the battered woman thing and all that kind of stuff. And that whole thing and the, what is it? The Stockholm syndrome and all these kinds of things. All right. But you've got to basically, if somebody's oppressing you, if somebody's doing something to you, somebody's restricting your freedom, someone is causing you harm, you have got to get out of that situation. There are so many people and so many places and so much infrastructure to help people. All right. Right now. And if you're not being oppressed in a necessarily violent way or something like that physically, then financially, if it's financial or cost of living, that type of thing, you've got to get out and look around and find a more inexpensive place to live, a better place to live where you can be free, be yourself, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And along those same lines, you have to take care of your health. You have to build your immune system because they don't want us to be healthy. They don't want us to eat healthy. And that's how I started out earlier in this program, saying about, I'm looking at one thing for gallbladder or something, and it's saying one doctor saying a study has shown that drinking caffeinated coffee has helped help the majority of men, and that another study showed that a serving of peanuts helped women. But then then you go to another website and it says don't, things to avoid, and it says coffee and peanuts. Right? And then you ask your doctor, and sometimes your doctor says, well, I don't know, because they're not really taught nutrition. And then depending on where you are, it's not like there's a lot of nutritionists out there. And you don't go to the local vitamin store and expect you're going to get nutrition. They're just hawking vitamins. Most of which, I forget what somebody said about vitamins. I heard this on a show one time. I forget who said it, but it was a doctor. And they were talking, and they said that vitamins are some, and I'm totally paraphrasing it, but vitamins are things that rich people piss away their money on. And he meant literally, because they literally just go through your body. And the whole concept of that was about absorption, which is a whole nother issue, and I'm not going to get into it. But, people just pop these supplements and they pop these things, and they don't think anything about whether or not it's being absorbed in their body. And basically, it's just coming out, So they're pissing away their money, literally, right? Was, this doctor / nutritionist, I remember. But like I'm saying, you don't know. So you got to go to your doctor and ask them. If you could find a nutritionist, ask them. Somebody who's like a PhD nutritionist, a real thing, went through, the process, knows their stuff, right? Not somebody who's just pretending or selling vitamins. And if you can't get an answer there, you got to get a second opinion. So today, and the internet's useless, because it's, like I said, you could go to a dozen sites and every other site contradicts the other site. So how do you know? You don't. The internet's broken. So that has to be a focus of people, is that in these times where they're throwing all this stuff out at us, right? All these endless diseases, right? Excuse me. Sorry about that. I just felt like I was going to sneeze. It's like, I don't know. I had the front door open, so the air in this front room should be fresh. I mean, it was open for a little while. A couple of times while I was going in and out to clean the porch. Anyway, so that's number one. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Under life means health. Okay? Your life, living, right? You have the right to your life. So that's up to you. It's not up to the government. It's not up to the bureaucrats. It's not up to these people coming up on, being interviewed on some network, telling you to do this, do that, because they contradict themselves. All right? It's not going to be found on a website. So going forward, this is how this is what you do. This is how you say, forget about Save America, forget about Make America Great Again, forget about the 2022 elections, the 2024 elections. That's all over. Western civilization has fallen. This is a former United States, but it's a big country and there's 330 some million people in it. And there's a lot of land and we're spread out all over. And we've already kind of put the kibosh on Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, because their original goal was to have everybody in major cities so that they could have more centralized control. But this whole thing backfired on them, because now everybody's like kind of scattering like the wind. And I live on the outskirts of town. And I advise you to do it while you still can, because I think eventually they're going to restrict it. But anyway, first, so life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, it's up to you. Nobody's gonna do it. It's up to you and your medical professional, put it that way. Okay? Liberty. Well, like I said, If you're being oppressed, whether it's a government or individuals or whatever the case may be, you've got to get away from that. You just have to. And it's not easy. I'm not going to pretend it's easy. It's not. People get trapped in all sorts of situations for all sorts of reasons. But you can't just, like I say, the classic, you can't just roll up in a ball or just sit there and take the abuse. You have to get out. And it's the idea is you can't fight City Hall and you can't fight the bully. So what do? You get away from the bully, right? You go to the other side of the schoolyard, okay? You stay away from, make sure there's other people in between you and the bully, or you move. There's 10 million some jobs available now. A lot of those jobs you could do everybody's working out of their house now. I'm telling you, I know more and more people. Everybody's doing it. I even looked out of curiosity. I don't want to. I'm happy, I'm content the way things are with me, right? But I look every now and then, and I get some headhunters. I've said this before. I get headhunters like offering me jobs, I don't know, maybe once a month, once every other month. Some good jobs, really good jobs, big paying jobs. But I see them and, they're 6 figures, high 6 figures, maybe the possibility, to make even more eventually. And some of those jobs, you can just, they're remote jobs. I said it before. I know a person who literally interviewed online, got the job, never physically left their house. Never physically met in person anyone they're working for. That's how it is now. So you can get away. And you can find a place to live where your cost of living is cheaper. Or if you have a certain lifestyle you want to maintain, you can maintain that lifestyle, but just maintain it somewhere else. It takes time sometimes. You make sure you don't just do something rash and run. I mean, unless you're being abused, then you do run, and you run to a shelter and you run to some place where you can, be safe. But I'm saying if it's a financial thing, or if it's just, this fiefdom, these little dictators that are running these states and places and putting all these weird mandates and stuff that are just unreasonable, infringing on your liberty, your freedom. Then you take some time and you find and research and find the place and, go somewhere where you can be as free as possible. And last is the pursuit of happiness. And the thing about it is that actually will come naturally. Because if you're healthy, all right, and you're like, you have a feeling, I'm free, right? If you're going to be happy, and you're going to find happiness within that, in that case. But yeah, pursuit of happiness is really important. It's what life's all about. Like I say, those founding fathers, man, they had it all. They had it together. They got it right. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, man. What? It's such common sense, but I mean, to actually have written that down, is just so, mind-blowing. And the idea that the current regime, and I mean the corporatocracy and the bureaucracy, right? These two big behemoths that are running things now, and being pulled, their strings being pulled by the Davos World Economic Forum, organized crime syndicate. They're taking away our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So the only way you're going to defeat them is not to go against them. It's not to protest. It's not to come up with some kind of vote. Think you're going to change the makeup of a Congress, of a body that just does not function. Okay? It's dysfunctional. Doesn't work. All right? How many people have gone in there, right? bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. What they just do, they banned some a congressperson just this past week, right, from social media. To understand big tech, the corporatocracy, they're basically saying, look, you guys are nothing, and they're putting it right in your face. If you go against us, we will make you a non-person. We will make you powerless. Constitution, freedom of speech, we don't believe in that. We're going to write our own constitution. We're going to call it the terms of service. Right? I made a big point of that, and I'm not going to get into it, but I'm going to just do a quick update on or a review of that. Look, a private company cannot be involved in criminal activity. If a private company is involved in criminal negligence or breaks the law in any way, either their people working for that company or the company itself, the people working for the company may see jail time, or the company itself will be sued in a court of law and will be found guilty, and, they'll be held to pay. Okay. Now that's just breaking a state law, local law, or even some federal law, whatever. So what suddenly makes a private company able to break the First Amendment? You see what I'm saying? And I say this constantly. The First Amendment, Congress shall make no law abridging freedom of speech, right? And also included in that is to redress the government with grievances, right? So in other words, to question the government, say, I disagree with this thing, and I want to address this issue. Well, people say you get banned from social media if you try to exercise your freedom of speech or question what the government's doing, particularly if it's some left-leaning thing that these people who run big tech social media, that's part of their ideology, their narratives that they want to put out there. Well, that's against the Constitution of the United States. So if a company like Enron, if you remember who they were, can be prosecuted, right? If other companies, if AT&T back in the 70s could be broken up for being a monopoly, right? Then they created what they called the baby bells and stuff. And this goes on all the time. If companies that are found criminally negligent, right, in something, if the pharmaceutical companies themselves, all you got to do is turn on the TV. The FDA approves a drug and the pharmaceutical company selling this drug, because I guess they falsified some kind of test or something like that, or didn't give the results. If you want to admonish the FDA and say they didn't know. But either way, the point is you see these commercials on TV where these law firms, these companies private companies are being sued all the time, right? And in the instance where there's death is caused by a company or criminal negligence, there's people go to jail, right? Or are fined ridiculous amounts of money, settlements in the hundreds of millions, of dollars. So how does suddenly internet company, social media company is able to break the Constitution, the First Amendment, which is like the highest law of the land. And as the First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law. Not even members of Congress are allowed to abridge free speech, right, or the right of the people to redress the government with grievances. Congress can't. In other words, the elected official, the government itself can't even, right, pass a law and do it. Well, how would a private company somehow be immune? Section 230 or something? You know, do you see what I mean? Do you understand that? Do you hear the words I'm saying? Right? Private companies are sued. People working for companies every day go to jail for committing a crime. Private companies. All right. Well, the highest laws of the land is the Constitution of the United States. There are some things in the Constitution that, you know, like treason and things like that, that that you can get the death sentence for. All right? Breaking the laws of the land, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that is the ultimate law. It's not even up for debate. Do you see? The Bill of Rights isn't even up for debate. So the private company thing is just, where are the voices on that? Right? See, if I were a company that got prosecuted for something at any given time, I'd seek, I'd petition the government and say, hey, I want that money back from that lawsuit because, apparently you're letting, these big tech companies, social media companies violate the laws. Why did I have to pay $10 million? Right. Somebody like Martha Stewart, should sue, the federal government, Congress, or whatever. Because if Nancy Pelosi can day trade and make $4 million on insider trading, right, why did Martha Stewart have to go to jail for it? Right? I use her as an example, but there's been plenty of people. The other example I've used is like the Bernie Madoff type of guy, right? It was a private company that was involved in this Ponzi scheme, right? And just ripped people off, right? Did all this stuff, broke the law. And he went to jail, and the company was basically, that was it. Well, it was a private company. They broke the law. Guy goes to jail. Okay. Twitter is breaking the law. YouTube and Facebook even are breaking the law every day. They're not just breaking like local laws or like, smaller laws. I don't know how else to say it. They're breaking the laws of the land, the Constitution. And people are just like somebody on the news. Well, they're private companies in terms of service. Yeah, the terms of service doesn't rule the Constitution of the United States. People are like, I don't know. How stupid can you really be, right? And where's like the ACLU and places like that? Like where's these law firms? What's going on? This is like right in your face, obvious. It's not up for question. There is no comeback. Company breaks the law. Company's found guilty. People go to jail or company's fined. Right? And remuneration is, there's a settlement and people who were harmed are somehow, given some sort of remuneration or, whatever. So, yeah, that just cracks me up. And so that's what I'm trying to talk about. So, I look at these events and what most people just don't understand is that you have to understand the concept of agent provocateurs, conspirators, and coup d'etat. And coup d'etat is plural. That we live in a country, a corporatocracy, and a world that is run by people that are involved in all those three things. And all of the events, right, that we are exposed to right? Oh, by the way, I forgot to. Here's the weather. This is about an hour or two old. About an hour and a half. Yeah, about 2 hours old. But this is the pattern right now. Like I showed you before, it snowed here. But this is the way the jet stream's going. Looks like Florida's going to be getting some rain in the central portions there. And that cold air coming down from the north all the way down into the southeast. But yeah, see the dip that's like right around. I'm in the mid-Atlantic states, but you see how it's dipping from like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and it goes up into the northeast there. The plains starts to come down. Anyway, just if you're curious, you can tell where where those lights are. Wherever you see a high concentration of lights, those are just the major cities. I mean, this is an actual satellite photo, NOAA photo taken 2 hours ago. And it's in motion, And that's what it looks like here. So. But yeah, I hate to burst your bubble, but, it was absurd when I was flipping around YouTube looking for something to watch to kill some time. After my walk down, I'm just trying to stay well myself, so I'm not doing too much. I mean, of course, I shoveled snow. I walked every day this week, and today I shoveled snow. So it's been like 5 days of where I've gotten some exercise in every day. And that's the key thing. You gotta, at least every other day, you gotta do some physical exercise. If you're stuck in lockdown or, any of this kind of thing. But yeah, you gotta get your health. You gotta take care of your own health. You can't trust anyone. All right? And certainly not the internet. And you got to get free. You got to have, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And all this crazy stuff, man, sooner or later, their bubble's going to burst. All right? They're blowing this thing up. All right? And it's just going to burst. And when it does, it's not going to be pretty for anybody. And that's why you're going to want to be in a safe place. Because already the economy is showing signs of collapse. All right. The markets, did you hear, and I'll end this show on something. I normally don't get too much into this kind of thing, but, since I do, I keep my ear and eyes open. Across the board, from crypto to precious metals to the markets themselves, and globally as well, like China's not doing too good right now. All right. But the U.S., so we have serious inflation here, okay? And the Fed has signaled that it's going to raise interest rates 3 times this year and probably 3 times in the following year, okay? And that means that when interest rates go up, the markets go down because people want their money, those who have money, in a safe place. They don't want to lose money. They want, at the very least, in an ideal situation, they like, they want their money to increase. But at the very least, they'll take 1.7% or 2% or 3% or whatever. But anyway, as interest rates rise, the cost of mortgages and even buying a car or any kind of thing you're going to have on time payments, loans, credit cards, and things like that, anything that's on has a variable rate, okay? The interest is going to go up. So if you're thinking and considering making a move, like I say, my house, I have a fixed rate mortgage. I pay $200 mortgage, taxes, and insurance a year where I am. Okay? Because I was lucky. I found a cheap house. But I showed on a previous show that you buy a $50,000 or $75,000 home, you could probably get somewhere in the anywhere from the, I would say, $400, $500 to $600 range a month, and that would include your taxes, mortgage, insurance, depending on what you paid for the house and what your down payment was. Could be less if you have a down payment. So if you're living in a house right now that's worth $250,000 or a house that's $150,000, and you're in an area where the taxes are high and you don't like the school system or you don't like the policies and you don't feel free and safe and all that stuff, then move to the outskirts of town or some other place where you could buy a home for like $50,000. Hell, you could probably buy the home for cash, even selling your expensive home at a loss, and have enough cash to just settle in and figure out and get yourself another job. Because there's 10 million jobs unfulfilled right now. Okay? And if you move to an area like I did, where your costs are so low, you barely need to work, right, to survive, to pay your bills. And so the time to do that is now if you're going to have to be involved in a loan situation, because interest rates are going to go up in the next year. And after that, they're going to go up even higher. And home buying is just not going to be a realistic thing. So you want to get a fixed mortgage like now, before they start raising interest rates. The bubble's going to burst. The stock market's going to burst. Crypto isn't the answer because it's not realistic. It's digital money. You know what I mean? All the sun has to do is have like a solar mass injection, a Carrington type of event. Grid goes down. Guess what? What are you going to do? How are you going to access your crypto? Right? These guys who have, all the OUE traders and all that kind of day traders and all that kind of stuff. What are you going to do when you come downstairs and the grid's gone? Right? You're not going to turn the lights on. I am. You see my on-air light and stuff, and Mr. Roboto back there with the game over hat on, and then the other guy next with the mask, right? They're all being powered here by stored energy. They're not plugged in. Do you got one of those? Well, you can get one of Great Solar stuff. If you read my book Codex and Then What and stuff, you could a lot of the stuff I've talked about today, is in there. You got to get your act together, man. Things are happening, the balloon's bursting. And it's not just these stupid, idiotic stories and these agent provocateurs and conspirators and these attempted coup d'etats and stuff. That's going to continue. It's going to get worse. When these people, when you back, when you ignore the bully, that just drives them crazy. When you back these people against the wall, they just, they just double down. That's why I'm saying the Save America thing is a joke, and the MAGA movement. Look what they did to him for 4 years. They're going to double or triple down on him. They're already trying to do stuff now. So you're wasting your money because if you support those campaigns, that money's going to the media. It's paying the corporatocracy. In other words, you're paying Rachel Maddow's salary, who makes about $20 million, I think I heard somewhere, close to it. Imagine that. So ridiculous. Or Sean Hannity or whatever, But the point is, you're not helping America. You're not saving America. These guys just talk. They've been talking the same type of things all the time. And what I'm trying to do is wake you up. Right? This bubble's going to burst. All these bubbles are going to burst. Some of the Russia bubble did already burst, but there's still people out there that don't even know it burst. Right? They're still talking about it. But it burst. So this one, as far as I'm concerned, is totally burst when that story came out about the special forces guys who were undercover there. So they had advanced, in other words, that's just so fishy and so bizarre that it means that the whole thing was perhaps, basically agent provocateurs, right? Pushing people into the building and pushing people into doing something, and then basically create this whole thing. In other words, it was a pre-planned event. Meanwhile, Trump's down at his rally, and he's like just laughing and talking about stuff, having no idea any of this shit's going on, because half the people up there were special forces. All right, given by generals who were traitors. Right? Our military is not, isn't all on our side. You have to understand the Pentagon is not on, they're bureaucrats, man. They're lifelong bureaucrats. Look at some of the stuff these guys have done. That one guy who called China, one general, said, don't worry, I'll keep you informed. Right? China's the enemy, man. A U.S. general is calling China and telling him, I'll let you know if anything's going to happen in advance. That guy, that's called treason, man. People are whacked out in this country. I'm sorry, but I got to laugh at this.
Really funny. Really funny.
What I'm laughing at is the face expression on this girl's face. I mean, this is insane, I mean, this is so ridiculous.
Really funny. Really funny.
Okay.
Oh, man. It's ridiculous. It is insane. Insanity. All right.
Good morning.
All right, folks. That's that. I don't know. What's today? Friday, 5:45 a.m. It's the 7th of January in 2022. Hard to believe. I may or may not be here tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. Visit my site, ROCKFLUX.com, TonyCaravanLive.com to stay in touch. Take care. Have a wonderful day and have a